Hey everyone, we're moving on to section 2.2, and this is where we'll start to focus our assessment of how humans impact the environment and learn some very specific ways we can look at that. And one of the first ways is using a term called carbon footprint. So I'm just going to take you through a little reading right now, and we're going to just understand some basic terms and what the concept of carbon footprint is. So, how carbon footprints measure the impact of human activities on the environment. In Chapter 1, you learned that global warming and climate change are caused by burning fossil fuels. You learn that when we drive cars, heat buildings, or turn on lights, we burn fossil fuels and release large amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the air. Ooh, GHGs. That's an important abbreviation, and that stands for greenhouse gases. By using a carbon footprint, we can measure the impact of our day-to-day activities on the environment. So what is a carbon footprint? A carbon footprint is a measure of the amount of GHG emissions, which is greenhouse gas emissions, produced by activities like burning fossil fuels. All right, so just so you guys know, when we burn fossil fuels, we'll take something like carbon, which is in coal, or carbon like this, which is methane, and we react it with oxygen when we burn it. And in this case, if it's coal, carbon from coal, when we react it with oxygen, we are going to make carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide traps greenhouse gases. When we burn methane, which we could just call natural gas, when we burn natural gas, we also make carbon dioxide, but we also make water. And it turns out water vapor is a very strong greenhouse gas. In fact, it's a more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide is. So back to the reading. Another main cause of greenhouse gas emissions is deforestation. Ooh, this looks important. Cutting down or burning trees in forests around the world. Forests are considered carbon sinks because they remove and store carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen gas through photosynthesis. And we've learned that already. So if we cut trees down, now the trees can't suck up that carbon dioxide. So remember, trees will collect carbon dioxide and they will use it to produce sugar. So trees will take these things out. So trees are really good at pulling carbon dioxide out, so that's why we call them a carbon sink. When trees and forests are cut down or burned down, carbon dioxide is added to the air. So this is a carbon footprint right there. This changes the forest into a carbon source. Oh, so we've got three really important terms here. So we've got carbon footprint. It's the measure of the amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced by activities like burning fossil fuels. We have carbon sinks. They remove and store carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen, so like a forest would. Another really good carbon sink is the ocean. In fact, the ocean is a better carbon sink than trees are, because trees will fall down, or there'll be a forest fire that will burn them down, usually every 80 to 140 years. And so then all that carbon goes back up into the atmosphere. But oceans hold carbon dioxide for a long time. It just takes a long time for oceans to do that, about 100 years. So they're a carbon sink, but they're a slow carbon sink. Trees are a little quicker. But carbon source is anything that will produce greenhouse gas emissions. So right here we've got a little graph. I'm not going to go too into it, but what they're doing is they are measuring the amount of carbon dioxide and produced by various things. And you see the GT here? What GT stands for is gigatons. All right, so that's huge. So there's 1,000 kilograms in 1 ton. All right, and just so that you understand, so a megawatt or a mega is 1,000 times larger than kilo. And giga is 1,000 times larger than mega. So a gigaton is a huge number. And so when we take a look at these, land use change and deforestation, so when we knock things down, cut down trees and stuff like that to build homes and stuff like that, that produces around the world 7.6 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalents. We're going to learn about what that means. Industrial processes, 1.4 gigatons. Agriculture, 5.6 from turning the earth over. And energy production, holy man, 24.7 gigatons. That's the most. And so waste is 1.5. So if I wanted to look at the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions, the total, I would add 1.5 from the waste. I'd add the 7.6 from the land use. I'd add the 5.6 from the agriculture. I'd add the 1.4 from industrial, and I'd add the 24.7 from energy production. I'll get my little calculatrice here. Some of you could probably do this in your head, and I probably should be doing it in my head. 5.6 plus 1.4 plus 24.7. I got everything in there. Yeah, 40.8 gigatons. That's a huge number. That's a huge number. Gigatons of CO2e. So that's a massive amount. Now, if I wanted to figure out how much energy production itself did, then I would take 24.7 and I divide it by 40.8, and when I do that, I'm going to multiply this whole thing here by 100, and that's going to give me a percentage. So 24.7 divided by 40.8 is going to give me 60.5%. So that's how much just energy alone does. That's crazy. Okay, so let's talk about what this CO2e thing is here. What the heck is that? So a carbon footprint can be measured for a person, an organization, or a business. So I'm just reading right here. It can also be measured for an entire country or continent. Carbon footprints are measured using units called, look at this, are measured using units called carbon dioxide equivalents. Different greenhouse gases have different strengths when it comes to trapping heat from the sun in Earth's atmosphere. So they have different strengths. Some are better than others. Carbon dioxide equivalents are used to convert the mass of each greenhouse gas to a mass of carbon dioxide that would give the same warming level over a 100-year period. This way, different warming effects of the different greenhouse gases can be combined into the measurement. Carbon dioxide equivalents are measured in tons or gigatons. And like I said, 1 ton is equal to 1,000 kilograms. 1 gigaton is equal to 1 billion tons. Oh, crazy. So one thing just to remember, so in terms of greenhouse gases, we have CO2, and that's sort of like our benchmark. But then we've got water, and water is stronger, and then we have methane. Methane is really strong. Methane is 21 times stronger. So some processes produce methane and it goes into the atmosphere. So methane would be, it takes less methane to make the same amount of warming as carbon dioxide. So you only need about 20 kilograms of methane to produce the same warming that 100 kilograms of carbon dioxide would. So different greenhouse gases have different warming strengths. So these are our GHGs. Okay, we're just going to jump ahead and just look at a few last things here. So what is your carbon footprint? So what does this mean for Joe Blow and the public? Your carbon footprint can be broken down into two parts, and these are important. We have primary footprint and a secondary footprint. Here, I'm going to use a different color for secondary. We'll vert that one up. So your primary footprint measures the total greenhouse emissions from burning fossil fuels for energy and transportation. So when we look at primary footprints, that's just to like heat our homes or to get electricity in for our use. But or driving vehicles, hopping on the bus, things like that, flying in airplanes. That would be primary footprint. Your secondary footprint measures the total greenhouse gas emissions for the food you eat and the products and services you buy and use every day. So secondary measures the total greenhouse gas emissions for the food you eat and the products and services you buy and use every day. It measures greenhouse gas emissions over the entire life cycle of the products we use. These are called cradle to grave costs. And we're going to do an assignment this week where you're actually going to do pick one item and research it and see all the different things required to make that item. And so you can, and then what happens when you're done with it? Where does it go? So we're going to learn about that cycle. These costs start with the materials that go into manufacturing a product and end when the product is disposed of and starts to decompose. Almost everything you buy and use has a carbon price tag that adds to your carbon footprint. For example, when you buy a plastic bottle of water, the greenhouse gases that are released during its manufacture and transport to the store are added to your carbon footprint. Whether it is the cheeseburger you order, cheeseburgers, at the drive-through window, or the amount of packaging on the new computer you just bought, way too much packaging, it all adds to your carbon footprint. Okay, and I just want to go over this last part. The different choices you make as a consumer affect the size of your carbon footprint. So the different choices you make affect the size of your carbon footprint. That's really important. So this is where choice comes in, and we need to understand everything that goes into the product so that we can vote with our dollars and only buy things that have a small footprint. For example, your carbon footprint will be smaller if you eat locally grown food rather than food that has been shipped from another country. That's really important. So going to like the farmer's market or growers markets on Saturdays or on Wednesdays during the summer, but Saturdays all throughout the year, buy local. This is because not as much fuel has been burnt to transport locally grown food to your table. This also applies to other products like clothing and furniture. So the more we can buy local, the smaller our footprint is. So I've posted up some activities there for you guys to do, and this will be one of your first big assignments will be coming up. So I hope you like this video, and the next one we're going to carry on and look at some more specifics, looking at vehicles and things like that.